Hello and welcome back to another Warcraft video. So they've updated the alpha patch notes and, well, it's about time I covered them and told you what all the changes are. There really aren't a great deal, and there are plenty of class changes that I'm not really going to cover here because it's too specific, but they've definitely removed a few more abilities and done things like that. I'll talk more about that when I talk about my opinions at the end of the video. I'm a tad concerned, but overall still casually, or not casually, slightly optimistic, maybe, cautiously optimistic, that is the phrase. Alright, so, the new section that they added, or at least one of them, is secondary stat attunements. This is one I'm not particularly too happy about. So they said it's a new concept that they're trying to introduce for each spec, so that it's attuned to a particular secondary stat. And they said that these are going to take form of a passive ability that grants you a 5% increase to a specific secondary stat, and apparently this is meant to just provide a good starting point to focus where you put your secondary stats with gear. And they said that usually it would be your highest throughput stat, not counting spirit or bonus bonus armor, which are of course healer and tank specific things. They said there are a few exceptions though, and raw throughput may not even be the biggest concern in some situations based on your playstyle or what you're doing. And they said to treat this 5% buff as a bit of a guideline. So, yeah, this is a bit weird. So for the DKs, it's Blood's Multi-Strike, Frost's Haste, Unholy's Multi-Strike. For Druids, Balance's Mastery, Feral's Crit, Guardian's Mastery, Resto's Haste. For Hunters, BM is Mastery, Marksmanship's Crit, Survival's Multi-Strike. For Mages, Arcane's Mastery, Fire's Crit, Frost is Multi-Strike. For the Monks, Brewmaster's Crit, and then the other two are Multi-Strike. Paladin's Holy's Crit, interestingly. Protection is Haste, Retribution is Mastery. I don't know, I mean, I always loved my my Haste-built Rat Paladin. Maybe I'm worried about that. For the Priests, it's Discipline's Crit, Holy's Multi-Strike, Shadow is Haste. For Rogues, Assassination is Mastery, Combat is Haste, and Subtlety is Mastery Strike. For the Shamans, Elemental is Multi-Strike, Enhancement's Haste, Resto's Mastery. For the Warlocks, Affliction's Haste, Demonology's Mastery, Destruction's Crit, and then for the Warriors, Arms is Mastery, Fury's Crit, and Protection is Mastery. Yeah, look, I've definitely got opinions in this. I'm going to save them, though, for the end of the video, in which, I'll just go through all my opinions on things. But I'm concerned, I'll say that much now, so maybe it's worth listening on in the video until we get to that. Alright, so next we have the topic of self-sustainability. Basically, they want to polish up how characters are able to sustain their own health, especially when you're doing things like solo questing. So, to do that, the DKs have got a new passive ability called Dark Succor, or something like that, which they get at level 60, and it's basically the same as the current thing in the game, just that currently that's a glyph, it's now going to be an ability. I think that's really good, actually, because once I glyphed that onto my, my DK, it was very easy to level. It was a massive improvement, and having that just sitting on a glyph was perhaps a little bit odd. So for the Druids, your Healing Touch will now heal you for 50% more when you self-cast if you're Balance, and Predatory Swiftness increases the healing done of your Healing Touch by 50%. So basically, your Healing Touch is going to be a lot better as a Druid. That's really handy, and yeah, good stuff. Though do bear in mind that I think they're removing that whole proc thingy with Healing Touch and Feral, so that wouldn't be as useful in combat, I suppose. It's more of an out-of-combat thing that they want to do. Now for the Hunters, Kill Shot will heal your Hunter for 15% of your max health if it kills the target, and Survivalist is a new passive that's learned by Hunters at level 10, and after killing a target, Survivalist, for Survival Hunters of course, will give you 15% of your health over 10 seconds. Right, here's my thing. With Kill Shot, this is actually similar to some of the ideas that I laid forth in that video in which I talked about momentum. I think max health is good, max health cuts down on downtime, but in this case, maybe make it a bit of damage for your kill shot, because that is going to result in more fun gameplay. It's going to result in you just wanting to move faster and play faster and kill things more. This health thing's fine, but maybe they could do one or two things in that regard to make it a bit more fun. Okay, so for Monks, Afterlife will always summon a healing sphere when your enemy's killed. I think that's pretty awesome. Though since the healing sphere has to be walked into, it's definitely more of an active solution. It's not going to passively increase your health. And then also Glyph of Afterlife has been removed. For the Paladins, Supplication now increases Flash of Light's healing by 50%. That's pretty damn strong. So that should help out a lot. Though, as a Rat Paladin, I never had problems healing myself up because my judgments would give me 3 stacks of that buff, which would give you a very powerful instant, flash of light. So I'm not sure if that's needed, but hey, sounds good. So for the Priest, Devouring Plague now heals for 2% of your maximum health per tick, which is a increase from the current 1%. For the Rogues, Recuperate now heals for 5% max health per tick, up from 3. I think that's definitely good. Recuperate in a sort of questing situation doesn't feel very strong. And even when you're using Recuperate, Leeching Poison, and is it Cheap Shot? You know, the one that, activates your non-lethal poison. I think that it could be better, so that certainly seems pretty on point to me for the Rogue. Next, for the Shaman, Maelstrom Weapon now increases your direct healing of affected spells by 20% per application, and then Glyph of Healing Storm has been removed. Also, Elemental Focus will now trigger anytime you land a killing blow. I don't play a Shaman, so I can't really talk much about that. For the Warriors, your Victory Rush and Impending Victories now heals for 25, up from 15. And finally, for the Warlock, Strain Life now heals for 1.5% max health per tick, up from 1. And Harvest Life now increases the healing from Drain Life up to 3% per tick, which is a increase from 2.5%, so not a humongous increase. Alright, so that's the self-sustainability stuff. I'll talk more about that when I talk about my opinions, but hey, it sounds pretty good. Right, next we've got active mana regeneration, which is gone. Now look, I'm a little bit pissed about this. Let's move on. I was planning on rolling a healer because of this system. Now I'm not planning on rolling a healer, and I think I was reading just on Twitter, and I saw Olivia Grace's tweet which just said, "I don't think I want to heal anymore." I think it was a mixture of this active mana regen being removed, and then a few other changes to the Shaman, so that stuff's a little bit worrying. Okay, next, they added a section on tooltip clarity, which basically just says, listen guys, our tooltips have historically, sometimes, been pretty shit, and we're going to try to make them better. They're being revised, maybe pared down, to give a little bit more increased clarity. That's definitely good. If you have basically a set of patch notes contained within your tooltip, then really Blizzard are doing something wrong, so it's nice they're taking a look at that. And I suppose in future they'll be able to fix things like this a little bit easier. One of the advantages of their new file system, I believe, is that they will be able to hotfix client things. So traditionally, if they hotfix an ability, maybe to buff it or something, that wouldn't be reflected in the tooltip. They will now be able to hotfix an ability and then change the tooltip. That's all pretty cool. Okay, it's opinion time. Time for a good old bit of punditry. Okay, secondary stat achievements. Utter bollocks! Utter stupid bollocks. This is silly. This is so silly in my opinion. Right. What they do by just giving this latent 5% increase is they say, hey, you are a blood DK. That means you want to prioritize multi-strike, as an example. Now, you may be thinking, well, why would you want to prioritize it? Here's the thing, right? Your gear score and the way stat distribution works means that if you have maybe an average item level of 1,000 in your character, well, that will give you X primary stats, X secondary stats, and let's just say that the number of secondary stats overall that you have is Y, okay? Now, one of those secondary stats is going to be Y multiplied by, 0.5, giving you this 5% bonus. It's always going to make one a little bit more optimal. Now, that means that Blizzard are defining a gearing strategy for you, and they're providing a straight buff to that gearing strategy. I don't think I like that. I'd rather it was just, you have your class, you have your mechanics, and you build it whatever way you want. Maybe if you happen to get a piece of gear that's got lots of haste on it, but maybe doesn't have something else, then that's fine. You now attack a little bit faster instead of multi-striking a little bit more. I think that's more fun. But here's the thing, here's the main problem that I have with this. Let's just say you're in a raid, right? And you're a blood DK, as we said earlier, and multi-strike is your secondary stat attunement. Well, what if a bit of tanking gear drops that doesn't have multi-strike on it? Do you know what's going to happen? You're going to be bummed out, right? And your guild is probably rolling EPGP. And they're going to expect you to want to take that bit of tanking gear and pay for it with your EPGP points. Then you feel burned. Now, recently Blizzard have been saying that they don't like how players are, concentrating too much on the stats, and, when it comes to gearing, it's either best in slot or nothing. Okay, I get it. People treating anything that isn't best in slot as a complete pile of crap is bad. That's not good. That's not good design. But or that's not a, a good thing. But when they go so far as to basically prescribe a gear strategy for you and tell you, hey, you're a blood DK, you should take multi-strike now because that's what we've said you should take, lol. I don't think that's a very... This strikes me as coming completely out of the blue, being completely unnecessary. Look, they're already simplifying the game enough with some of this, ability pruning. I'm going to talk about that in just probably right after this section, actually. But they're already simplifying the game a decent bit, and I think some of those simplifications are okay because there is a lot of contrived stuff with classes at the minute, and they are very bloated. A lot of people are probably, raging about, oh, back in the Burning Crusade it was much harder. Guess what? Back in the Burning Crusade, our classes didn't have as many damn abilities as they do now, so it's fine to cut some abilities. But don't, cut abilities, then tell people that, oh, you're going to get a latent 5% buff to this secondary stat, so you want to gear for that. You're giving people their 8 buttons they need to use in a raid. You're telling them what kind of gear to go for. I just think there's a little bit too much there. So these secondary stat attunements, honestly, I just don't like the look of them. Now, I haven't really heard what other kind of WoW community, whatever, people think of secondary stats. Most of the stuff that I heard on Twitter last night was about, just some specific class things, and then people being worried about healing. Specifically that they wanted the idea of active mana regenerative matter. So, damn, I don't know what this is like. And people who are, especially the high-end raiders that are listening to this, please let me know what you think about this, because, yeah, I have raided high-end stuff in that I've, cleared most tiers as normal at the appropriate time-ish. I have done that, but I've never been a giant theory crafter or anything. I've just kind of icy veins it and then, just enjoy playing my class, which has always been fine. But if anyone is involved in theory crafting or stuff like that a little bit more, let me know what you think about this. Is 5% enough to make it so that if you are Blood DK and a bit of gear drops that doesn't have multi-strike, well, does that 5% mean that you're now pissed off? Because, say something was going to give you 1,000 multi-strike, surely you would want 1,050. And maybe you would prefer 1,050 multi-strike to 1,000 haste, because you miss out on that 5% buff. I'm not 100% sure, but at least my initial impression of this is very suspicious. I just don't know why it's here. If anyone else has got some insight or something that I'm missing, and I totally could be missing something, then please let me know in the comments. It'd be great to hear. Okay, next we have the topic of self-sustainability. This is actually great. I think self-sustainability is fantastic. It allows you to just get going again after you've killed a mob. That's fun. I remember when I was playing my Arcane Mage at the very start, and this was before I had a great deal of buttons on it, and it was just kind of like, sit there, turret people. I know I could slow and then try to kite, but come on an Arcane Mage, that's pretty annoying having to do. So after a mob, or maybe after 3 or 4 mobs, you kind of would want to eat, or something. And, yeah, well, maybe with more self-sustainability, and stuff like that wouldn't happen. But, of course, I'm actually an idiot, because looking through these notes here, mages aren't getting anything. Whatever. I suppose I should just stop being a bad mage. No, I'm fine on, now I'm level 90. Still, the overall idea of more self-sustainability is fantastic. One of the nice things as well is it's not that you're just clicking on a thing in your bag to get health back. It's that you're actually kind of actively trying to get more health back by dealing more damage, by playing your class more, by playing it faster and better. I love that. It's good for the sense of momentum, though. As I said earlier, I would like it if, say, if you're a hunter and your kill shot, will heal the hunter for 15% of your maximum health if it kills, well, make it also do maybe, perhaps make your next big shot or something do 50% more damage. Now, you'd probably have to pair that back for raids or, take stuff like that into account, but I'm just thinking purely from a solo questing perspective and solo just killing mobs, in the field perspective. Like, imagine if you're out killing gulp frogs, right? And you get a really nice crit from your kill shot, then your kill shot gives you a buff, which means one of your next shots is more powerful. Then, it kind of all chains together in a way that is really powerful, but it's powerful because of how you're playing the game and, how you really are mastering your class and making sure that your kill shot's always the thing that kills your target and stuff like that. Still, like, what we have anyway is health related. Some damage things would be kind of cool for 1 or 2 classes, a little bit like how the rogue works with ambush. Not exactly, but the way ambush sort of gets you right back into the fight. still, overall, I'm happy with this. I think it's really, really good. And yeah, absolutely great stuff. Give us lots of self-sustainability that is not passive, and I'll be happy. Alright, next, active mana regeneration is gone. Well, I don't know, I don't think I want to play healer anymore because it seemed like a really fun thing. So I'm going to assume, I'm going to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to say that the reason they removed active mana regeneration is because they couldn't tune it right, maybe they were making it too strong, and it led to Mists of Pandaria like mana regeneration, to the point where mana didn't matter, and healing was just the kind of very bad situation that we have now, where the only way they'd be able to challenge a healer is by just making bosses do insane damage. Though, active mana regeneration in a sort of environment where mana actually matters could be so interesting. If people are taking damage in a less bursty manner, then healers are going to have time to plan ahead and think about the spells that they cast. They're going to be casting the more mana efficient spells on their targets. So it's not going to be like Cataclysm where they just kind of nerf batted your mana and then didn't really give you any viable option to try to get it back as much. Of course, by the time Firelands hit, the way scaling and all that worked meant that the mana system of Cata was fine at that point, but it was definitely very different and hard for a lot of people at the start. I think that still, making mana matter a little bit more, not to the Cataclysm degree, but a little bit more, and then having active mana regeneration in there and having it matter would be really nice, and I hope they're able to pull it off, because I just think it's good gameplay. Not only do you have to balance mana, but then there's also a little bit of a time concern. You've got to think, well, do I have 5 or 6 or not 5 or 6, do I have the 2 or 3 seconds to get off this active mana regeneration related cast before I have to get back to healing my group? That's great, and because damage isn't going to be as spiky as it has been in MoP, well, you will have that 3-second period more. It's not like while you're doing your active mana regen, your tank is going to be globaled. So I think this is a system that has potential. Maybe Blizzard are going to try to rework it or do something. I understand, though, how if they balance this out wrong, it could result in major problems. So if active mana regen is too strong, then we just get right back to the Mists of Pandaria way. Maybe active mana regeneration could be very strong but hard to use, meaning that the game is a complete cakewalk for skilled players, but still a little bit of an annoying mess for not so good players. There's a lot of stuff to take into account here, and I think that with my active mana regen, the only thing that really it had going for it, and what I liked, is that instead of just using Innervate on cooldown or something boring like that, it actually involved sacrificing a little bit of time to get a little bit of mana back. I just thought having time as a resource and having to balance your time resource against the health bar of the other people in your group is really interesting, and I don't know if that's going to be there as much with active mana regen being removed. Then, of course, the final thing is tooltip clarity. I don't think anyone could say anything bad about it. More clear tooltips is a good thing. So, yay. Right, another thing that's happened is they have updated the stat squish. Look, I'm not going to go through everything because that would be damn boring, but if you want to check out your class stuff, go to Wowhead, go to MMO Champion, go to the WoW official blog. You'll find the stuff there. Now, overall, what do I think about the ability pruning? Did I say stat squish? I meant ability pruning. Right, ability pruning is needed at this stage, I think. You know, it's at the stage now where it's a little bit crazy in terms of our abilities. A lot of people are saying that Wrath and TBC was more hardcore than this. Well, maybe at least Heroics and Wrath or something, because, you know, Wrath 10s were pretty easy, but I would also argue very well balanced for their intended group. But anyway, that's beside the point. And people are saying that back in the day, you know, it was so hardcore, so great. And then Cataclysm gave everyone 2 or 3 abilities, Mists of Pandaria gave everyone some abilities, and it got to the stage where our classes had so much, too much to balance into a really well-refined and fun system. So it's definitely good that they're cutting things out. I'm just worried they're cutting too many things out. Now, my first-hand experience in the alpha is an arms warrior and another thing, a hunter, a beast mastery hunter. So here's the thing about the arms warrior. It plays the same, just that there's no overpower, and slam is now your filler. Basically, where you had to decide between using overpower and slam, you now always use slam, and slam costs 15 rage. That is, like, it feels similar, but what I miss, about Overpower is the fact that it had that nice short global cooldown, so it really felt like you were just, as we would say in Northern Ireland, clean beating the shite out of them. Now that doesn't, doesn't feel like that as much with Slam, but Slam does work in that it's got a pretty nice spell effect, or not spell effect, a sound effect and stuff like that. So overall, Arms Warriors feel pretty decent. And I know they've had Recklessness and a few things removed, but that's all been just rolled into Skull Banner. Well, no, I think Skull Banner has been rolled into Recklessness and it's still called Recklessness, but whatever. They've merged a few buffs. It still feels good. It still feels like an Arms Warrior, so I'm happy. As for the Beast Mastery Hunter, it feels the same. Look, like, Serpent Sting's gone. I didn't notice it was gone. It's still a very fun spec to play. I'm enjoying it. It's a little bit weird not having Rapid Fire there, but at least Bestial Wrath's there. You know, it's regular, like, 1 minute cooldown and all that, so that's fine. But in terms of some other classes, well, I've been tuning into the Fat Boss stream from time to time. And Fat Boss, of course, great guys. And one of, I don't know if it was Alex or Laws, but one of them anyway was saying basically the Rogue felt like absolute shite. I've got no idea what spec they were playing or anything like that, but apparently it just felt like crap, which ain't good. Then I think one of the guys also said that, I think it was, it's Laws that plays a hunter, isn't it? Yeah, his in-game character is John Prescott, I think, which I find to be humorous. Yeah, he was playing Survival, and he said, it's fine, it just feels like it's missing a button or two. I haven't played SV yet. In fact, I haven't played SV in about 6 months since I made the SV guide. Then I was just like, yeah, well, I kind of prefer BM, so I'm going to play that for now. But what I kind of gathered is that SV is definitely pretty easy, and it perhaps doesn't have as many buttons as it could do with. Look, I'll test this stuff out more, and I can promise to you guys, if I see ability-related problems, I will be abusing the hell out of that suggestion box that they have in the Alpha UI, because I think that Blizzard are making some really ballsy decisions at the minute, and I'm really glad to see that, because I think their biggest problem recently has been pussyfooting around the community, and they've been listening to people too much. It's extremely important in game design to understand that, you know, you listen to your fans a little bit, and it's even the same in YouTube stuff. You listen to people a little bit, but people know what they like. People are really discerning about how they use their time and things like that, which is a great thing, you know? Or at least most people are. But they don't always know how to get that in the best way. And that's why you have people who are able to design a fun game that is engaging, and then people who aren't. And because that's just the way game design works. And in fact, I'm going to be doing a video on this topic in a little bit, so that people can just understand. Hopefully it should help, just help some of you guys have a little bit of a different perspective on development. And basically I'll be going over the MDA design framework, which, that sounds like a big formal thing. It's actually really simple and really insightful, and I think you might find it to be fun. But anyway, as I was saying, it's certainly good that Blizzard are just making decisions that they think are right for the game, but I'm maybe a little bit worried that they will, in 1 or 2 key cases, get overzealous. And it's those 2 or 3, like the small key cases, and that's where the community really just needs to drag them over the coals. But I think that if people are raging about every tiny little thing in isolation without taking the big picture into account, then the quality of feedback isn't going to be that great. So I'd say that when, we're all giving feedback and thinking about things, before saying anything, or maybe before being angry about Scattershot being removed from a hunter, it's worth looking at all the other classes and what they've had removed, and then adjusting your view of the wider picture in accord with that. And then trying to think of what the possible problems could be. And that's what's really important, and I think that's what we really need to do as kind of like a community, sort of, because this is a great opportunity. Blizzard can fix WoW, they can modernize it. I am happy with the majority of changes that are being made. I'm very happy with many of them. I'm happy with the majority. There's just 1 or 2 things, like, maybe for just as an example, the that 5% stat attunement that I'm just not too sure about. I think they may be a little bit wonky. Still though, it's very early days. We've got a lot of testing to go forward with. We've only gotten to Frostfire Ridge at the minute. The maximum level is 92. There aren't any other zones in the game, or in the alpha. We haven't hit level 100 yet, though there is level 100 PvP server coming up soon, which will allow us to test out more talents and things, so I'll be sure to do that and bring you videos and all the different talents. But, yeah, look, it's just, it's an interesting discussion. I'll leave it at that. And by the way, when I say the stuff about players you know, not like knowing what they like and not really knowing how to get it. That's not meant as an insult. It's just, it's kind of like one of those game design kind of old adages that's really I don't even know if that's the right word, but one of those principles that a lot of designers have kind of realized and that they have to work around. And it's like, it's just that I think that, you know, everyone should be aware of that principle because it really is very important into how games are designed and how they're talked about by developers. However, with that said, I have one humongous criticism of Blizzard to, just to round off this video. They did two things which well, one thing that I don't really like, actually. One big thing, but maybe it applies to other stuff. They removed active mana regeneration, and they didn't give us an explanation. On the patch notes, all we see is the whole active mana regeneration patch notes with brackets saying section removed and everything else in red crossed out. Look, like, if they want to make sure that people understand what Blizzard are trying to do, they need to be giving us explanations in this. And while I do love how open Blizzard have been about things recently, I think it's perhaps rather problematic that a lot of information has been coming out via Twitter and then going to the various fan sites without actually being sort of fully into the patch notes or, you know, just put in a place where the majority of people are going to see it. I think that's unfortunate. And people are just going to see active mana regeneration removed, then they're going to jump to a conclusion. And that's unfortunate. Hell, even for removing abilities, I think every ability should have a little paragraph or just one sentence beneath it saying why, just so people can understand. Because if they educate their player base, going back to again to the whole idea of people not really knowing what they want but knowing what they like, well, if Blizzard can educate people as to why they're making a decision, then they will be more informed as to whether, you know, this is a decision that they think will positively impact their gameplay or not. They're not just going to say, see like some patch note and go, oh no, everything's blowing up in fire. Well, if Blizzard can actually explain that to people, then they'd understand, but Blizzard haven't done it. So that was a little bit frustrating. It's weird, like, this is certainly a more downer-ish kind of video, honestly. It's just because there's one or two things I'm concerned about. Not too keen on the whole active mana regen removal, and I'm not very keen on the whole, secondary stat attunement thing. I just think they're out of the blue, so let me know what you think. I know this has been a 27-minute long video, but hey, the key information was in the first 6, so I guess if you're watching now, then apparently I had something to say or something. I suppose I did have something to say, but it's probably all a lot of, it's probably just a big old load of crap. Whatever. It's time to end this video, so thank you very much for watching. You can check out the channel for all the latest Warlords of Draenor news, discussion, and all that stuff, but honestly, if you've made it 28 minutes through this video, you probably know that already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.